That night, Margaret didn't see anything strange with her own eyes. She washed the dishes, turned off the kitchen light, checked that the back door was locked, and went upstairs to bed. The house was quiet in that deep, familiar way an old house can be. Only when she picked up her phone the next morning and opened the photo she'd taken in the living room, just a quick snapshot of her new lamp to send to her daughter, did she notice it. In the dark corner behind the armchair, where there had been nothing but shadow, a tall, human-shaped silhouette leaned out of the doorway. No face, no features, just a darker patch of darkness where no one had been standing. Her heart started hammering. She knew she'd been alone in the house. Hello there, friends, and welcome back to our channel. Today we're exploring one of reality's most unsettling mysteries, those strange shadows and silhouettes that appear in our photos and videos, shapes we never saw with our own eyes in the moment we pressed the button. We'll dive into the boundary between the paranormal and how our perception actually works. Please subscribe, hit that like button, and share your own experiences in the comments below. Your story might help someone else understand what they're seeing, or make them question reality even more. Let's begin. Margaret was 57 years old, a retired nurse living alone in a small house on the edge of a quiet town. Her life was simple and predictable. Mornings started with the same routine: smell of fresh coffee drifting through the kitchen, soft ticking of the wall clock, low hum of the refrigerator. She'd stand by the window in her bathrobe, feeling gentle warmth of the mug against her palms, while watching rain beat on glass or sun slowly lift over trees. The house had its own sounds and rhythms. Old radiator clicked when it warmed up. Staircase creaked on third step every time she walked upstairs. Evening, when she turned off TV, she could hear distant rush of cars on highway, like soft ocean far away. The kind of environment where nothing extraordinary ever happens. Her days filled with simple things: walk around neighborhood after breakfast, video call with daughter in another state, grocery shopping once a week, bit of gardening when weather allowed. At night, sitting on couch with blanket over legs, feeling its familiar softness, watching old mystery shows. She wasn't looking for ghosts or signs, just wanted peace. Yet for few weeks before that first photo, she began noticing strange feeling in house. Nothing dramatic, no slamming doors, no whispers in the dark. Just a faint, persistent sense that someone's standing just outside doorway when she walked into a room. Sometimes crossing hall, she'd feel chill on arms, as if air in one particular spot colder than the rest. She would pause, rub goosebumps away, tell herself just a draft. At night, when she turned off bedside lamp, darkness felt thicker than before. Shadows in corners seemed a little too deep, like ink that hadn't finished drying. Once, as she rolled over in bed, I had the distinct impression someone standing by door, just inside the frame. Heart thudded once, hard. She stared into the dark, listening, feeling her own pulse beat in ears. Nothing moved, no sound except clock in the hall. She told herself it was age, perhaps, or living alone after so many years of working in busy hospital wards. When noise and chaos stop, silence can feel heavy, as if it has weight. But somewhere underneath rational explanations, small, stubborn piece of her mind whispered, "Something is off. Something is here." The moment everything changed was so ordinary that, if not for one small detail, she would have forgotten it. One afternoon, her daughter asked for a photo of the new lamp Margaret had bought for living room. Nothing dramatic. "Mom, send me a picture. I want to see how it looks next to the sofa." So Margaret tidied the coffee table, smoothed blanket on the armchair, stood near doorway with phone.
Living room warm and welcoming. Late afternoon light filtered through curtains, laying soft golden stripes on carpet. Lamp glowed softly, shade casting gentle circle of light on wall. Margaret took 2 or 3 photos, checking quickly they weren't blurry. Didn't see anything unusual, no movement, no figure, just her quiet room. Wasn't until next morning, sipping coffee at kitchen table, that she opened photos to choose best one. As she zoomed in to check details, breath caught. Behind armchair, next to doorway leading to hall, there was a shape that hadn't been there when she pressed the button. Tall, indistinct silhouette, darker than surrounding shadows, with a suggestion of head and shoulders. Looked almost like someone leaning out from the hallway into room, watching. First reaction, denial. "No, that's just shadow of the lamp," she told herself. Zoomed out, zoomed in again. Lamp's light fell in front of armchair, not behind it. Silhouette in wrong place, wrong angle, wrong height. Throat went dry. Felt cold weight of fear settle in chest, like a stone dropped into deep water. Words rose up inside. I knew something was there. That strange unease she'd felt walking through house, sudden chills, sense of being watched, suddenly all lined up in memory like beads on a string. I knew. Yet she also remembered clearly that when she took photos, she'd seen nothing. Eyes hadn't noticed any figure. Room had been empty. Only now, on screen, did someone appear. This wasn't first time she'd had such feeling. Looking back, other memories surfaced. Years earlier, different apartment, she'd taken a picture at family gathering. When they looked at it later, there'd been what looked like a hand near her shoulder, though no one standing there. At the time, they'd laughed it off as motion blur, trick of light, then simply forgotten. Or the time she woke up middle of the night, certain someone had called her name softly near her ear. Heart racing, sweat cooling on skin, she'd turned on the lamp and found room empty. By morning, she'd written it off as a vivid dream. These moments had slipped away, pushed to back of mind, but now, staring at the dark figure in photo, they came flooding back. I knew something was wrong. Sense of shock wasn't just fear. It was the realization that her intuition, those subtle nudges of anxiety, might have been pointing to something real, or at least something that felt real enough to her nervous system that she couldn't ignore it anymore. For a few days, Margaret kept the photo to herself, would open it late at night, sitting at the kitchen table with only small lamp over the sink turned on. Stare at the silhouette, heart beating a little too fast, waiting to see if the figure would somehow move or change. Of course, it never did, but the feeling of being watched followed her into every room. Eventually showed the image to daughter during a video call. "It's probably just shadow," daughter said gently, trying not to alarm her. "You know how cameras pick up strange things sometimes. Digital noise, compression, all that." Margaret nodded, but unease didn't go away.
She turned to internet. Late into night, read article after article. Some sites told stories of spirits and entities, invisible visitors captured on film. Other, more scientific sources spoke about image noise, motion blur, compression artifacts, limitations of human vision. One idea kept appearing in scientific discussions. Our senses don't simply receive perfect copy of world. Our brain builds what we see, takes limited, noisy information from eyes and reconstructs picture, filling gaps and smoothing inconsistencies. Brain, they said, not camera, it's storyteller. She learned there's always a delay between what happens out there and what we experience in here. Brain needs about 3 to 5/10ths of a second to process sensory input, compare with past experience, construct a conscious image. In that brief delay, constantly predicting what should appear in front of us next. Only if prediction wrong do we notice something as surprising or odd. Strange to realize that while walking through own house, she wasn't seeing raw, direct reality of each moment, but brain's model of it. Model based on habit. Same hallway, same furniture, same empty corner. If something unusual appeared there, even for a fraction of a second, brain might simply ignore as noise, smoothing it out so conscious experience remains stable and safe. But camera, on other hand, has no such habits, doesn't know what should be there, records whatever light hits sensor in that brief instant. If shadow falls strangely, if person moves quickly out of frame, if hand accidentally crosses the lens, camera dutifully captures it. Later, when we look at the image, brain tries making sense of odd shapes and half-formed patterns. Stack of coats becomes hunched figure, patch of dark becomes watching presence. This process, she read, called pareidolia, tendency of mind to see meaningful shapes, especially faces and figures, in random or ambiguous images. Same mechanism that makes us see animals in clouds or man on the moon. Brain would rather find a pattern, even frightening one, than accept chaos. But that didn't quite satisfy her, because when she looked at the photo, didn't just see random pattern, she felt something, that cold little drop of fear in stomach, memory of standing in that very room, knowing she was alone yet feeling watched. Brain had dismissed the feeling in the moment, camera had not. As weeks passed, Margaret's fear slowly shifted into curiosity. Instead of asking, "Is there a ghost in my house?" began asking, "What is my mind trying to show me?" Came across stories from other people, families who found strange figures in the background of ordinary photos, parents who noticed faces in baby monitor videos that weren't there in real time, homeowners who swore security cameras captured moving shadows in empty rooms. Many described the same pattern. In the moment, felt nothing more than a vague unease, fleeting chill, a sense of being watched, only to later find evidence on screen. Margaret started understanding these episodes not as proof that invisible beings constantly stalking us, but as windows into the way perception works. Invisible entities were, in a way, two things at once. On one level, simply ambiguous shapes, noise, compression distortions, overlapping shadows that camera had frozen. On another level, symbols of our own unconscious vigilance, part of the nervous system that never sleeps, always scanning for threat even when we consciously relax.
She realized brain constantly protecting us, listens to every creak of house, every whisper of wind, every shift of light and shadow. Most signals never reach consciousness. They're sorted, evaluated, dismissed. But sometimes system wavers. Predictions and incoming data don't quite match, and a feeling surfaces. Something off, something here. We call it presence, shadow, being. In that light, dark figure in her photo became less monster and more message. You felt unsafe. This is what your mind drew on canvas of reality to express that feeling. Think about your own experiences. Maybe you've walked down a hallway at night and suddenly felt skin prickle, as if someone's standing behind you. Maybe you've glanced at coat on chair in dim light and for a split second seen a person sitting there. Heart jumps. Then you flick light on, and it's only fabric and shadows. Brain predicted danger. Reality corrected it. Scare passes. Or perhaps you've noticed something odd in a photograph. Smudge that looks like a hand on someone's shoulder. Faint face in a window. Feel that same cold drop in stomach. But when you return to the place, nothing there. Again, brain fills gaps, turns pixels into presence. Understanding this doesn't mean dismissing every story or feeling. Simply gives another lens. Instead of thinking, "I'm crazy," or "my house is cursed," you can think, "My brain doing its job, trying to keep me alive, would rather see phantom threat than miss real one." Margaret began testing this idea. When felt watched in hallway, would pause, take a breath, scan surroundings with gentle curiosity rather than fear. Would notice details. Way street light outside drew sharp bar of shadow through curtains, faint hum of fridge, tiny draft around door. My body on alert, she'd tell herself. Doesn't mean someone here, means I'm sensitive to environment, that's all. Gradually, terror drained away. Photo became a strange kind of talisman, not of ghosts, but of her own sensitivity, own subconscious. Invisible entity in the corner was, in a sense, herself. A year later, visiting Margaret's house, you wouldn't immediately guess any of this had happened. Living room would greet you with the same warm lamp glow, same soft blanket on armchair. On wall, in a simple frame, you might notice the infamous photograph. Dark silhouette still there in the corner behind chair. If you asked why she'd hang something so unsettling, she would smile and say, "That's not ghost, that's my nervous system." She now lived with quiet awareness of her own perceptual glitches. When floor creaked at night, didn't immediately imagine footsteps, would think, old wood, cooling down. When shadow shifted in hallway, would notice the source, car's headlights passing outside, branch of tree moved by wind. Still had moments of unease, of course, but instead of spiraling into fear, treated them as information, body saying, "I'm on edge, something in environment feels off." Sometimes, lying in bed with lights off, would feel that old sensation of presence at the doorway. Heart might speed up, just a little, but now would place hand on chest, feel warmth of own palm, steady rhythm of heartbeat. "It's okay," she'd whisper inside. "This is me, my brain scanning for danger, not my enemy, my guard dog." You, listening to this, may have your own versions of these experiences. Photo you took in kitchen where a shadow appeared behind you, home video where a strange shape crossed the doorway, baby monitor image that seemed to show someone standing by the crib when in fact the house was empty. You may have told yourself never to think about it again, or you may still feel a knot in stomach every time you remember.
What if, instead of asking, "What invisible entities live in my home?" you asked, "What is my perception trying to tell me about how I feel in my home?" Maybe you're more vigilant than you realize. Maybe there's unresolved grief, past danger, or simply natural human fear of being alone and dark. Mind visualizes this fear as figures in corners, faces in windows, shapes on screen.
gives your emotions body so they can be seen and eventually understood. Dear friends, your brain not trying to torment you with phantoms, it's trying to protect you. Magnify shadows because would rather startle you than leave you unprepared. Fills empty spaces with figures because, for our ancestors, mistaking branch for predator was safer than mistaking predator for branch. So next time you see something strange in a photo, some shape that wasn't there when you pressed button, pause. Notice your heartbeat, coolness or warmth of skin, stories your mind begins to spin. Ask yourself, what am I feeling? What is my inner guard dog barking at? Please subscribe, hit like, and share your story in comments. Maybe your experience will be first step for someone else, from icy fear of invisible entities to warm understanding of how their own brain works. Thank you for listening, dear friends. Until next time, stay curious about your mind, and remember, those shadows on your screen might just be reflections of your most protective instincts. Take care.